Hi everyone, I'm Phil Medcalf from Alpha Marine Photography, and in this video I'm going to take a look at Marelux's Apollo S strobe. Um, this is aimed at being their mid-size strobe. Currently it's their smaller strobe because they have only got two strobes available at the moment. One is this one and the other is their Apollo 3, which is a bigger strobe. The plan is, I gather, to produce another one called the Apollo Nano, and that is going to be their small strobe. So this is going to be their mid-size. Now, saying that, it's quite a big strobe. With batteries in and the ball mount on, it weighs 856 grams in air. It's quite a dense one. It weighs 210 grams in water, so 210 grams negative. Compare it in size to the little Inon S2000. Let's put those next to each other. It's a much bigger strobe than the Inon S2000. Admittedly, you get a more powerful strobe. This has a guide number of 33. The S2000 was guide number of 20. The S220, which I looked at in a previous video, which is Inon's current strobe, their only strobe at the moment, has a guide number of 22. So this is half as powerful again. So it's in the same position as Inon's Z330, which is discontinued. But it's a considerably different kind of strobe to the Inon's offerings. There's a lot of features, some of which you might find useful, some of which you'll probably go, okay, not something I'm looking for. It's made out of solid metal. It really does feel, you could tell why it's so heavy when you pick it up and feel it. It feels very sturdy in most, certainly in the body design. Basics, what you get in the box: you get a ball mount, no YS mount. I don't feel that's necessarily a bad thing. I would strongly encourage people to use ball and clamp arm systems rather than the plastic flexi arms that tend to be what you use YS mounts with. So yeah, I'm not too bothered that there isn't a YS mount in here. It comes with some covers, so it has quite a nice cover, that nice idea, a cover to go over the controls, which is quite firmly on. Let me get this off. So it's kind of fairly stiff, sort of, I don't know, rubber, plastic, I'm not sure what. And that covers the controls, which I think is a good idea. I straight away like that idea, Marelux. I recently got my Backscatter Mini Flash 2 out of the box. Yes, I probably should have taken the battery out of it, but it hadn't been stored away for very long, and it had been switched, somehow got switched, presumably as I was putting it in the packaging, into manual mode, and the battery was flat. So just sitting there on sort of in manual mode was enough to flatten the battery out eventually. So having a little cover, other strobe manufacturers maybe think about that. Get a little cover done. For people who maybe wanting to keep the batteries in, maybe between a couple of dives, or you're traveling with it in your hand luggage and you need to be able to show that it will switch on, which is what some security want. Having a little cover that you can just take off and then turn it on and demo it is a really nice idea. It came with a little plug for the fiber optic socket, and it also, this is a demo one, so I didn't actually get the box, but it came with a little neoprene cover. Now that's not on the list in the of what comes with it in the manual, so I don't know whether that's an accessory. But slight little bit of buoyancy to nullify some of that 210 grams of negative buoyancy. Also protects your nice finish, but I took it off so that you could see the logo and things. And then it has two little covers for on the sides. More on that a little bit later on. So, and it comes with a diffuser. So as mentioned, power wise, it's got a guide number of 33. If you're wondering what guide numbers mean, I have a little blog about strobes where I talk about explain guide numbers. So I'll put a link in the description to that rather than me go off on a tangent talking about guide numbers. The angle of coverage without the diffuser on, it says it's 110 degrees in the manual. With the diffuser on, it says it's 120. Color temperature without the diffuser on is really quite a cool color temperature, 6200 Kelvin, which is quite a cold light for a strobe. Put the diffuser on and it has a big difference, despite not really looking sort of yellow or anything. It warms it up to a 5500 Kelvin, which is much more sort of standard that you get from a lot of strobes. I'll be honest, I only ever use strobes unless I'm using a snoot. I only really ever use strobes with some sort of diffuser. It softens the light, it increases the spread, as mentioned. In a lot of cases, reduces that Kelvin number, gives you a warmer looking light. So good reasons to use a diffuser. This diffuser, I'll be honest, it's a bit of an oddity. It's like a soft silicone rubber, I think. It does the job as a diffuser, but the design, the front of the strobe has a bayonet mount. Here you can see, well, I'm showing you, it's got two strobe tubes, flash tubes, whatever you want to call them, in parallel to each other. There is this kind of bayonet mount on here, and it does have a little sort of lever kind of grip. It is a bit of a fiddle with this sort of soft rubberized thing to get it in, and then I kind of gather you're supposed to press that lever down, get it so that the bayonet things are in place, and then it sort of stays on. The actual manual doesn't mention using the bayonet thing. It just literally shows a picture of you pushing the diffuser onto the front of the strobe. But I found if I didn't put it around the bayonet and have this little clippy thing in place, this diffuser comes off really easily, and it still comes off pretty easily. So I'm not desperately enamored with this diffuser design. I think maybe, again, Marelux, if you're listening, a bit of a redesign would be quite nice to make this a bit more secure, because it literally fell off during a dive, and I'm pretty sure I put it on. It seems to be very variably easy or hard to get it on and off. I presume that the bayonet mount is for other accessories. Certainly you can use Marelux's soft snoot systems with it. I don't think there's any third party people making snoots for it, but yeah. So yeah, a little diffuser does come with it, and that, as I say, reduces the color temperature. I've not got any stats as to how much this will drop the guide number. I would expect this to reduce the guide number as well, so it's going to reduce the reach of the strobe. That's, in simple terms, what guide number is about. They don't have any mention of that on the in the manual for it. It just says with dome diffuser, scattering angle 120 degrees, temperature 5500. So I don't know whether that's going to affect your reach. I don't know. Other things, depth rating wise, it's rated to 100 meters, which is what I'd probably expect from a strobe this heavily built. It runs on two 18650 lithium batteries, like this one. They have a recommended type that they say you should get. They should have a discharging current equal or over 20 amps. So yeah, they are of a certain rating. So it takes two of those. The battery compartment is an interesting design. So this screw here is what holds the battery compartment cover in, and it unscrews. So it basically has like a bolt holding it in place. If you hopefully can see, you'll see as I unscrew it, it kind of rises up out of it. I'm quite like. I'm not necessarily keen on luminous green, but the fact that they have sort of matched up things like the O-rings and stuff is quite a nice sort of feature of it. And then there's battery compartment is in here. The battery compartment is a little bit tight. That may, I did sort of notice that the labels of which way around to put your batteries in and things were kind of coming away. So again, another thing, if you're listening, Marelux, maybe just get better decals or something. And then getting it back in, you just need to get it in the right place and it screws down. So it's got two O-rings on here. It's described as a waterproof battery compartment. My interpretation of that would be that it's a sealed compartment, as in if the compartment door leaks, the water won't get beyond the battery compartment. It won't go into the strobe. So as long as you get the batteries out and rinse out the inside. I'll be honest, I haven't got that confirmed by Marelux. So again, if you know differently, put a thing in the comments below as to whether or not that is true or false. Generally, I would aim not to end up with a flooded battery compartment, whether they're sealed or not, because batteries are, constantly replacing batteries is not great. And yeah, lithium batteries getting exposed to water inside a strobe, there's all kinds of things that could go wrong, be damaged by that. I'm sort of in this thing of, I kind of quite like this battery pack design. But I don't know whether it's any better or worse than other designs that I've seen. Inon's screw-on cap system works pretty well. It's not infallible. Whether this is any better, having two O-rings on the actual piece that goes in, I would think is fairly good. I do wonder whether the O-rings will wear more quickly because they're kind of sliding down into the fitting to make the seal. I didn't get any O-ring grease with them. I did get a couple of spare O-rings. It's remiss of me, but I did not look up what the instructions are for greasing the O-rings. I have, however, got the manual on the front, so let's skim down quick and see what it says. Maintenance and storage. It says clean the O-rings. It doesn't say anything about greasing them. So again, if you know otherwise, put a comment in the comment section on this video. But it would seem like maybe they don't need cleaning. Again, manual not so clear. So that's the kind of, I think, most of the thing. They reckon at full power you'll get around 800 shots out of a fully charged pair of batteries. That's pretty good. It's kind of what I would expect from something using specific lithium batteries rather than like some AA's. Recycling time, it's down as 0.9 of a second on full power manual, which a guide number of 33. That I think that's pretty impressive. I haven't got the relevant apparatus to test that, but yeah, I think that's pretty impressive. And having played around with it, I can probably believe that as well. Controls wise, you have a mode dial, which is also the on off. So I've just turned this on into manual. You have a nice indicator light that indicates the by changing color how much battery power you've got as well. Red is while it's charging up, and they say after not being used or not having battery, it takes 10 seconds to charge up. But that will obviously, clearly it was faster because I've had this on and off today. And then you have an output dial, a power dial, whatever you want to call it. Hopefully you can hear. Let me put it next to the mic. It beeps when you change the power. It has 12 output settings from 1 to 12. Yep. Keep making it beep. There is one slight these controls I think are pretty much luminous, but I have one slight bugbear with these controls. The power, the output, it doesn't have a very good marker. Let me get this in as close as can. Can you see that arrow? That's pretty much black. It's pretty hard to see. The line kind of on the control knob, that's luminous and that lines up, but the actual thing saying where the actual pointer saying where it is set is a little black plastic triangle sticking out of it. Now, it's probably easier for you to see it on camera than it is for me to see it when I've got it facing me. And certainly, so you're kind of looking, it does slightly obscure each number or the circles in between the numbers. But it could really have benefited from having a little luminous bit actually on it, or even just putting an arrow on the back of the knob instead of just a straight line, because is that, have I got this on the lowest power setting or have I got it on something like halfway, medium power? It's hard to sort of see. You can feel it. There is a stop, so it does. If you go to turn it all the way down, it won't go past over to full power. So clockwise turns it up, anti-clockwise turns it down, and you do get a beep with each click, and it is a fairly positive click. It's not. I would say it's probably fairly easy to nudge it further, but as I say, you're going to hear that beep and you're not going to move it. It's not going to move very far and change the power vastly by accident. But yeah, just a little redesign of that would be nice. And then we've got this mode dial, going back to the mode dial, and it has some interesting modes. I'll be honest, underwater I have pretty much only used it on manual. The manual mode, as I've said, you get 12 output settings. There is a little chart in the manual of the strobe that explains what guide number you get at each one. There is a thing recommending if you do a lot of fast continuous image taking at full power manual, that it's going to shorten the life of the strobe, which is fair enough. That's pretty much the case with any strobe. If you thrash it, it will not last as long. Yeah, manual mode. I'll be honest, I don't use TTL pretty much at all. I'm not a fan of TTL. So you know, strobe manufacturers, you could make a strobe that just has on, off, and this dial, pretty, yeah, the output dial pretty much, and I'd be fairly happy. On the manual, it works really nicely. As I say, apart from that, knowing where the power is set to, which again isn't that big a deal because I don't tend to look at the numbers. I tend to just go, this picture's too bright, I'll turn the light down, the output down. This picture's too dark, I'll turn the output up if I feel that the strobe is the thing to adjust, which it usually is when you're using a strobe as a light source. So yeah, manual mode, I was pretty impressed with this. I think it's good as a manual strobe. It did the job fine. I triggered it using a fiber optic cable. The socket is what people often call the CNC style. It's you know, it's a fairly standard plug socket that lots of strobes have. This kind of one, this is actually an in-on rubber bush connector, but almost any sort of generic plug shaped end on a fiber optic cable will fit it, I would have thought. It seemed to trigger okay. The sensors seemed to be fine. I will sort of say I tend to use fairly I tend to use decent quality multi-core cables, but I think I have tried it with a lower quality cable and it still triggered okay. The other modes, now it gets interesting. So it has one called auto sync. So one thing I didn't say, it has a test mode as well, which is another nice feature. Apologies, there's going to be a little flash here, so if I hold this, should go. It says. There you go. So it has a test mode. I like that feature as well. So you can kind of do a little test and check that the strobe's okay. If you're having some kind of issue with it not firing, you can at least go, well, it's not the tube that's broken because it is firing. So down from manual mode, and again with this, this line on here lines up nicely with the different modes, so you can see what mode you are in on the thing. There isn't any sort of change in the coloured lights, which I did find useful on things like the CNC YSD2, and I think it's on the D3 as well, where the lights change colour to tell you that you've accidentally put it in TTL mode, and that's why your pictures have suddenly not been lit properly. Yeah, auto sync. This is their TTL mode basically. Now it's not one that is supported across the board, as in one of these ones like CNC had done and Inon have done, where it's like fiber optic triggering and it's supposed to match up with like the built-in flash on any compact camera, which never worked very well. It's designed for either using a strobe trigger that has a TTL capability, and I would think people like Underwater Technics, who make, I think it's Underwater Technics, apologies if I've got the name wrong, who make strobe triggers, they'll probably have made a version, their strobe triggers will probably have been made to be compatible by now, or there'll be a software thing for them. So yeah, you'll either use it with an optical TTL strobe trigger, so one that will work with a TTL strobe, or it's supposed to be compatible with Olympus's RC system. Now that's on their TG cameras, it's also on a lot of their mirrorless cameras. I did a little test with the RC on a Olympus TG6, with this strobe, it didn't seem to work very well. So I'm not sure whether I was doing something wrong. I put the auto sync into auto sync on the strobe, or the mode dial into auto sync, and I put the camera into RC. I connected it up, and it certainly triggered the strobe, but it didn't seem to light up the image. And it seemed to be incredibly dim. It didn't. I don't know what was going on, but it didn't like it. So I'm not sure why. I haven't tried it underwater, so I'll reserve judgment on that. But again, I don't use TTL. I don't encourage people to use TTL when I do courses. It's not something I tell people to use, because even the best TTL, you're gonna get a correctly lit, a fairly standardly exposed picture. You know, better in my view to have the manual mode and control it. Now, you then have this high-speed sync, MHSS it's called on here, which is for shooting with high-speed sync. So if you have a strobe trigger, one of these LED strobe triggers that supports high-speed sync, you can do high-speed shutter photography with flash. I'm not going to go into all the ins and outs of doing that. It basically means you can overcome that shutter sync speed issue that you get with mirrorless and DSLR cameras, where otherwise you'll get a shadow across your shot if you go to a fast shutter speed. Now, again, there's another warning in the manual not to take more than 30 continuous shots within 1 minute, because you'll overheat the strobe. What these things tend to do is they're firing multiple flashes in very, very quick succession to kind of cover the whole short sync shutter speed. That's a very simple explanation, and don't hold me to that as a thing. But basically, so what you find with these sort of things on conventional land flashes is there'll be a warning in the manual for your flash saying this may shorten the life, and certainly this is why there's a warning about using it a lot on with this strobe as well. If you thrash the strobe, it will shorten the life. So that's something else. And then the last mode is another bit of an oddity, and it's called MTL. And it's for continuous shooting. I don't think they say anywhere what the MTL is. If you know, tell me. But it's for continuous shooting, high-speed shooting, where you're using either a strobe trigger that supports continuous shooting, or I gave it a go with just the Olympus TG6 on continuous shooting with the camera flash set to manual 1/64th power, and this worked. I only had it on low because at high the flash won't, on the camera doesn't fire, it turns it off. So, but on low continuous with the flash on manual and this set, it worked. Now the output level, it has a sort of setting of how many frames per second you can get out of the matched by the strobe. So as you go higher output, as you turn up that power dial or whatever you want to call it, the amount of continuous shots you can take each second goes down. At full power, it says you'll only get 2 seconds. Now, it also says you don't need you need at least half battery power. There's another warning. There's quite a lot of red warnings in the manual as to what you can and can't do. I said now and then slightly sidetracked. I have the manual up as a reminder in the background. This is why we sat in the office rather than somewhere more open, so I can look at my second screen. But yeah, as I said, I sidetracked. when I said now, I was gonna say now the interesting thing with this extra mode is that you don't get full power. You're getting a reduced guide number. So the maximum guide number in this MTL mode is 19 rather than 33 that you get in manual. So you're getting that ability to go bang 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 bang, multiple continuous shots, which is good if you've got trying to get something that's maybe flitting around, changing position. But you're getting less power. So yes, it'll work on things that are moving around, but you're going to have to be that bit closer if you. And obviously, the closer the better, because the more shots you want to take, the less output you're going to get. So yeah, or the other thing is you're going to have to up the ISO, open the aperture right up to account for that lower amount of light from the strobes. But yeah, I quite like that feature. Yeah, the what's it, the TTL, the auto sync, not that impressive. I haven't tested the high speed shutter sync, but that that MTL, I think that could be really quite a useful feature, and I slightly regret the fact that I didn't pay much attention to the manual while I was up in Scotland, because I had quite a range of stuff to try out. So I literally only used this on manual mode and didn't try out the MTL or the HSS. One quirk with the Apollo S1, if you want to call it a quirk, it is a little bit of an issue, I think, slightly, if you're a Sony compact camera user in particular, is the manual mode only seems to trigger from a manual flash if you're using a compact camera, so where you're firing a single flash. If you are wanting to use the camera set on fill-in flash or auto flash, where it's going to fire a little pre-flash to trigger your strobe, then you need to put the camera into the MTL mode, the one that's for continuous high speed shooting as well. Because I presume because it's not set up to sense the deal with the difference between the pre-flash and the main flash. Now I've done a little test, and yeah, I found with my Canon G9X, which has a manual flash, so I wouldn't normally use it on fill-in. When I set it to fill-in, the strobe on manual doesn't fire. When I change it to MTL, the strobe fires at the right time to be in the shot. But that is a bit of a problem, because the MTL mode, as I mentioned, doesn't have the same output. It's a lower power, so you're only getting up to a guide number of 19. So I would say if you're a Sony RX100 user who doesn't have the option of a manual flash setting on your camera, you're always going to be using fill-in to trigger your strobe. This probably isn't a great strobe to get. Certainly not if you're looking for more power. You need to be looking at one maybe that can deal with that pre-flash mode in a conventional way. So yeah, not the strobe for the RX100 user, which is a bit of an oddity, a bit of a shame. I'm not quite sure why, when other manufacturers have come up with ways of dealing with pre-flash on their strobes, that Marelux has ended up with this slightly odd situation. I did try filling with the auto sync mode, and it does fire in the auto sync mode as well, but presumably that is going to be like a TTL mode, so it's going to adjust, and you have no manual control over it from what I can tell. The auto sync mode is the flash outputs being adjusted as TTL, so yeah, slight problem there. That's the modes. I don't think there's anything else I quite need to say about that. But I did sort of talk a little bit about what's under these covers. Let me bring this in close. So these are, hang on, sensors. And this is for a wireless triggering system. Now, again, I'm talking about it with zero experience. We did not have a test one of these to try out, because this works with the Marelux Lumilink, which is a wireless triggering system. You connect it up. It either, if you've got a Marelux housing, they're designed to the actual transmitter is designed to fit in front of the sockets for your fiber optic cables, and it basically converts the triggering light. So I presume it'll work with camera flash as well, rather than just like their LED triggers. To a signal that will travel through water. Now, I'm a bit vague about what that signal is. It says it's like an encrypted signal, presumably, so you don't end up triggering other people's strobes, accidentally from your camera if you're diving with another person who's got a Marelux strobe set up and they're using the Lumilink. I don't know. Apparently it travels further in deeper, darker water, so presumably it's using some kind of electromagnetic signal that is within the sort of visible wavelength, or just outside the visible wavelength. So it's probably infrared, maybe. Don't know. So yeah, it travels further if you're deeper and in darker water. Presumably you could use it for triggering these on strobe arms. The little sensors, I think that each one has like a 80 degree or 160 degree coverage, 160 degree coverage on each side, so you would think you'd be able to sort of reach them as long as the transmitter is behind them. I don't know. But you could also use these for off-camera lighting, I suppose, as well. I mean, certainly they say it'll reach up to 10 meters in dark water, so that's going to be what they're going to be used for. I haven't really seen much use of them. If any of you have seen any examples of pictures taken using these off camera, again, put something in the comments. So an interesting extra feature, you're going to pay the extra transmitter, the Lumilink transmitter, is going to add a fair bit to your cost. It's certainly more expensive than using fiber optic cables, so if you're not going to do off-camera lighting, I probably wouldn't bother with that. And I as I say, I don't know how much effectiveness you'll get out of those. What else? As a strobe, when I tested it, I think I've already said it works really well as a manual strobe. Price wise, it's in a similar price bracket to things like the Z330, the Inon Z330 was, and the CNC YSD3, and quite a lot of other sort of mid to top end, depending on which brand strobes. Some we've seen various brands come out with just a strobe, and in the UK at least they're around probably within about £100 of the cost of the Marelux. So cost wise, I think it's a reasonable value strobe. It's got some nice little extra features, some nice touches. Would I buy it for a sort of budget setup, something like an Olympus TG, I probably wouldn't. I think if you're going to spend, if you're at the point where you're thinking of spending hundreds of pounds, like £800 per strobe, on your lighting setup, I'd think about maybe looking at a higher end camera, a camera with a manual, full manual mode, before splashing out a lot, significantly larger money. This is why I tend to recommend things like the S220 for people using TG6s. But if you're looking for a couple of hefty wide angle strobes, then yeah, I think they're certainly a good contender in the same sort of league as a lot of the popular brand ones. I've not seen lots of comparisons against other strobes. I haven't done a side-by-side thing, apologies. I've literally just gone out, put the Marelux on as a single strobe because I only had one with me, and did some shooting. For macro, I did find it a little bit powerful, and that's one of the criticisms that was levelled at the Z330 as well when that came out, of it being very wide and harder to do macro with than, say, the Z240, which only had 20, guide number 24. It wasn't that much more powerful than the S2000. So yeah, but as a thing to just put light on your subject, it worked pretty well. And I'm sure, if you wanted to go even bigger, the Apollo 3, a guide number I think of 44, I expect that to be giving you serious reach, if you're looking for that sort of thing. But again, in that higher price bracket, there are some serious competitors. You're in the same sort of cost league as things like Retros, so whether you're gonna spend that kind of money. So yeah, hopefully you've found that useful. As usual, I probably waffled a bit, but I did find it a reasonable strobe. The only thing I can kind of query is we don't know about reliability. This is a new strobe, so it's not been around that long. I've not sold any. I can sell them, but I've not sold any so far. Because of that, I don't know anything about return rates. I don't know how many have been sold in the UK at all, so I don't know whether that many people are out there using them. There may not be many. I honestly think the demo one may have been the first ones that they had in stock, so I don't know. On that note as well, I'd like to say thank you to Brett at Nautilus for letting me use this strobe, lending it to me, and to Tim at Nautilus for getting me the batteries very quickly as well when I discovered that there wasn't any actual batteries with the strobe. So that was very helpful. Thanks, Tim. I'm going to do more of these videos. If you like the video, please like it. If you found these useful and want to see more, please subscribe to the channel. If you're interested in what we do, go and check out our website. I provide online courses in underwater photography, one-to-one tuition online. I run workshops around the world, in Scotland and warmer places, and I also sell equipment, and we are full disclosure, we are a Marelux dealer, but we also deal a substantial range of other brands of strobes. So I'm not having to push a particular brand of strobe. I can offer what will suit people. Thank you very much for watching, and